Today, we're gonna taking another look at the all-new ONEXFLY. If you're not familiar with the ONEXFLY, basically what we have here is a Ryzen 7 7840U powered handheld, very small form factor, easy to carry around. Super light, coming in at 580 grams, which is lighter than the ROG Ally. A little hard to believe there, because this does have a bigger battery. But, yeah, I mean, it is. It's actually a really nice device that they've come up with here. It's got a 7-inch 120Hz 1080p display, which is absolutely beautiful. As you can see, it's got some RGB around those Hall-based analog sticks. And near the bottom, we have these customizable RGB nameplates. Now this needs to be done from the factory, but you can get whatever name or whatever you want written on them when you order one from Indiegogo or their website when it goes live there. And the sound system here, in my opinion, is unmatched by any other handheld on the market. Personally, I thought the ROG Ally sounded good, and of course, yeah, it does. But this is tuned by Harman, formerly known as Harman Kardon, and the new speaker enclosures they designed here really let this thing kinda open up. It has some bass to it, super clean sound. I mean, it does sound amazing. Now just taking a look at some of the quick specs for the CPU, we've got the AMD Ryzen 7 7840U. Based on Zen 4, we've got a max clock up to 5.1 GHz, 8 cores, 16 threads. Since it's a new Ryzen 7 1000 series APU, we get the AMD Radeon 780MI GPU. It's based on RDE and a 12 CUs and a clock up to 27,100 MHz. Got that 120Hz ultra-thin bezel 71080p display, which looks absolutely amazing, those custom RGB nameplates down at the bottom, a 48 watt-hour battery, and, you know, the Steam Deck and the ROG Ally have a 45 watt-hour battery. At 15 watts, we can get around a 110 minutes of gameplay out of this. And of course, at lower wattages, you can much more playing indie games. And with all of that tech packed into this handheld, I'd say the biggest question is, how much is the ONEXFLY gonna cost? Well, if you head over to the Indiegogo right now, you can see that they out a few different tiers. Early bird on a ONEXFLY with 16 GB of 75,100 MHz RAM and 512 GB of storage, $739. Taking it up to 32 GB of RAM and 1 TB of storage, $89, 32 GB of RAM and 2 TB of storage, $969. 64 GB of RAM with 2 TB of storage, $1199. And finally, 64 GB of RAM and 4 TB of storage out of the box, $12.99. Of course, this is definitely looking pretty high here, but if you compare the pricing to all of the other handhelds on the market right now, given that we're getting 16 GB of 75,100 MHz RAM and 512 GB of storage, they're not far off at all from the competition, and I really love seeing these prices come down. But first up, we've got Forza Horizon 5. And around back, we do have Hall-based triggers. These are fully linear, so we've got a lot of control, especially for racing games. You can feather that brake in gas. Just give it whatever you need. And, personally, I really do like these for drifting and rallycross games. Sports Horizon 5 is my favorite racing game right now, just really awesome, and it runs absolutely amazing on the ONEXFLY. Right now, we're at medium settings 1080p, and I am using a little bit of FSR to get that frame rate up. At 720p 30 watt, we can hit 120 Hz with this game. You do need to drop it down to low, but at 10.80 medium with a little bit of FSR, I'm still getting an average of around 82 FPS out of this game. And with their new ONEX console software, we can adjust that TDP at any given time. We can change the RGB resolution. We can even set up different fan curves for the built-in cooling system here. And with the latest update, We've got a full game launch. This will automatically scan our default directories and download artwork, metadata, and information about each game. You can start it up directly from here. Next thing I wanted to do is just kinda show off this D-pad and Street Fighter 6. So here we have it at 1080p medium, and we're only at 15 watts. This game has definitely received a lot of updates and performs much better on these APUs now since launch. And I'm really glad that they've kinda modified this D-pad. Was afraid it was gonna be the same one from the One X Mini, but it does feel a bit lighter, has a little more roll to it, and it works out much better than the older one did. Next game I wanted to test was Cyberpunk 2077. We're at 1080p low, 29 watts. Now in order to run this at 1080 on these APUs, we do have to hit up some higher wattage. At least if you want to run it at 60 FPS, but at 720 PM, we can actually take that down and get well over 60. So from the settings, we're just gonna take it down to 720. Now on the fly, we can change that TDP. I'm gonna take it from 29 down to 20 watts, and we're gonna see some really great performance here. We can even go down to 15, but I wanted to show you how far we could go over 16. We get an average of 76 FPS at 20 watts on the ONEXFLY with Cyberpunk 2077, 720p low settings. And since we have such a compact screen coming in at 7 inches, it still looks great here at 720. Everything we've taken a look at so far on the ONEXFLY is in handheld mode. And in handheld mode, we do have to worry about battery life. We don't run it up too high. 30 watts won't net as much runtime, but, you know, when we're connected to a power supply, you can run it on the built-in screen if you want to, but personally, I like connecting to a larger display, be the TV, or monitor like this. Now this is actually USB Type-C monitor, or you can go with some type of dock. The ones that work with this Steam Deck, you can pick them on Amazon, will work with this handheld. And, you know, since we don't have to worry about battery life, we can actually take that TDP up. Actually been able to go up to 45 watts in dock mode, and it really does make a difference. From One X console, you can go up to 30 watts, but using a third-party app, you can take it up a more, and something like Red Dead Redemption 2 definitely needs a little more. And at about 40 watts with the ONEXFLY, we can get around 56 FPS on average with Red Dead Redemption 2, which is really great for an iGPU. I've got the built-in benchmark running right now, 720p low settings, looks really good, and it's very playable like this. And keep in mind, we're just working with the iGPU, but there's more that we can get out of this with an eGPU because the ONEXFLY does support USB 4, and it is running at a 40 gig protocol. So connecting a Thunderbolt 4 eGPU can really up the performance on this device in dock mode. You can use a larger Thunderbolt 3 or Thunderbolt 4 eGPU, but what I've got here is one of the newer, more portable eGPUs on the market from GPD, known as the G1. It's got the Radeon RX 7600M with 8 gigs of GDDR6 VRAM, and this 7840U at even just 30 watts has more than enough performance when it comes to AAA gaming. It really comes down to the high GPU not keeping up with how much performance this Zen 4 CPU can put out, but with an eGPU, it really changes the whole dynamic. Right now, we've got Cyberpunk 2077 at 1440p medium settings. Give you a look here. You can see we are at medium and 1440p. This will give us an average of around 76 FPS over USB 4. We could run this at around 54 FPS 4K medium settings, or we could go up into the 90s at 1080p. And, of course, you could connect a more powerful eGPU if you wanted to. I do have the Razer Cortex dock, and most of the time I have a 3080 Ti in it, but I really do like what GPD has done here with the G1. And to tell you the truth, I've gotten a more stable connection given that this is a true USB for eGPU as opposed to Thunderbolt 3. So overall, the ONEXFLY is definitely a solid handheld. Really love the design here. You can use it in dock mode at a higher wattage because we really don't need to worry about battery life like that. It does support an eGPU over USB 4, very comfortable. 580 grams, coming in lighter than the Steam Deck and the ROG. It's also got a bigger battery coming in at 48 watts. 110 minutes of runtime at a 15-watt TDP, a beautiful 120 Hz, 1080p IPS display, and the sound system here is one of the best that you can get in a handheld. The new enclosure design and the fact that this is tuned by Harman gives it some amazing audio quality. Remember, you can get this up to 64 gigabytes of RAM and 4 terabytes of storage out of the box, but your cheapest option is going to be that 16 gigs of RAM and a 512 gigabyte SSD. And with this one, I'd love to hear from you. Let me know down below in the comments why you chose this one over the others on the market. Also, if there's anything else you want to see running on the ONEXFLY, leave it down below. And like always, thanks for watching.